Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center and Chag Sameach. We're also starting tonight the final festival days of Pesach. And just a real quick note, tonight's service is going to be a little bit different in a couple of really wonderful ways. On the one hand, we are, and this makes me kind of sad, but it's for a good reason. On one hand, we are not having our usual Kabbalat Shabbat or Kabbalat Shabbat in the usual way, because Kabbalat Shabbat is designed to take us from the level of the weekday up to the level of Shabbat. But this past week has been Hol HaMoed Pesach, those sort of holy days with the sort of in-between days. They're not quite regular weekdays, not quite holy, but it's at a higher level. So it's our tradition to not climb the entirety of the ladder. We are going to start with some wonderful Shabbat traditions like lighting the candles, which we'll get to in just a second. We've got a special guest tonight for that. Not a guest, she's home here, but I'll explain that in just a second. And we are going to have Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, a special psalm just for Shabbat. And then we're going to go right into the Mariv service after I share a few brief but meaningful words of Torah. So just to let you know, if we miss a couple of songs you're used to hearing, it's all for a very, very good reason. You didn't wind up late. You're not in the wrong place. However you are getting here, we're delighted that you're joining us for this service. But it is Shabbat, and so we do need to welcome in those angels which escort us throughout this holy time with the song Shalom Aleichem on page 13.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Yasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rochem LaShalom, Malachei Yashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni LaShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem LaShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Together. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Tzedchem LaShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
What I should have said earlier is just because we're not singing all the same songs tonight that we usually do, that doesn't mean that we've stopped being a singing community. So anytime you feel like singing with us tonight, please feel free to sing along. Even if you're on mute, sometimes that's when our voices sound the best, when we think no one can hear us. So please join us in all of our songs. But first, I'm really excited about this. This is, I believe, a new tradition that's being started by our new president of the PJTC Board of Directors. I think she's been in office for 2 days and she's already shaking things up. So it's my great honor to introduce for the blessing of Shabbat candles this evening, our president, Stacy Sharp.
During my installation speech, I mentioned my presidency is all about the 3 C's: community, commitment to community, and connection. Most Shabbat candlesticks have a story, where they were purchased or gifted, where they came from, who they came from at a specific time period, connecting us from generation to generation, and as a PJTC community, and also from Jews around the world, reciting the same blessing every Friday night and holiday. I really can't think of a better demonstration of commitment to community than lighting Shabbat candles. During COVID, I had the opportunity to FaceTime or Zoom with friends and family to light candles together, even though we were separated. Together, we brought in more light during this dark time in the world, and also to each of us individually. Thanks to my parents who instilled traditional Jewish values. Hi, Mom, she's here tonight. I continue to enjoy the moment when the flame of the lighter hits the wick, signifying the separation of work and rest, of the craziness of the week and peace. As president, I would like to start a new tradition, like Rabbi said, not to worry, because this tradition will not be lengthy, but will set the tone of these 3 C's, hopefully. When we are not celebrating a B'nai Mitzvah, one of us will be invited to share the candlestick story and then lead the blessing. I'll start tonight, and if you're interested in sharing your story, I actually have a growing list of people that would love to share their story, so I'm really excited about doing this. So my candlestick story, it started earlier in this week when I told my brother David about this new tradition that I wanted to start. He's the keeper of the candlesticks that our great-grandmother brought from Russia. I think the Zoom coordinator is going to show you a picture of him right now. There you go. He was so excited about this that he wanted to be here tonight to show you in person, but he couldn't be here. Instead, he proudly sent this picture to me, reminding us how our parents instilled strong Jewish values and Jewish identity in our first Jewish community, our family being, as some of you know, I was one of 6 Jews in Yorba Linda, California in the 1970s. These candlesticks, though, that stand here in front of me are also very dear to my heart. This is a very special year for Todd and I. We got these candlesticks 25 years ago at our wedding, and we'll be celebrating our anniversary this July, so don't forget. We received these, and it really does remind me of how much light and wisdom that he has provided our family. So with that, please join me in the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, b'tzivanu l'hadlik ner, shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov. Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach. Back to you in the studio, the synagogue.
Thank you. Amen. Yasher koach. So we're going to continue. As I said before, it is still Shabbat, and so we are going to sing a special psalm just for Shabbat. And in fact, that's the name of it, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. It's on page 23,
Stacy, I'm going to borrow your background and start using that from now on. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. Let's do it together. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי אסור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידך, במעשה ידך ארנן. מזמור מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. יא לה 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 יא לה לה יא לה לה יא לה 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 יא לה לה יא לה 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 יא לה לה יא לה לה יא לה יא לה לה דום דום דוי. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך עליון ולזמר לשמך
Well, Shabbat Shalom and Hag Sameach, everyone. Thank you again for joining us here at Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. And it's kind of a weird week to be giving a sermon. I'm just going to say that up front. The Torah reading is a little bit different this week. We're not going straight into the next Parsha of Leviticus. That's not until next week, because for a Shabbat that is Holomoed Pesach, and specifically this Pesach, where Shabbat coincides with the last couple of festival days of Pesach, we have different Torah readings than our usual cycle. Tomorrow, most apropos, we are reading from Bashalach. We're reading from the song At the Sea. And I think some of you may have read a book about that at dinner in the past week sometime. So we'll be reading about the song At the Sea, which is part of our Exodus story. And then following that, we'll be reading from Parashat Re'eh, which is something that we read at this time during festivals because it talks about the festivals. But also I like to think because Parashat Re'eh has a lot to say about interpersonal justice. So we'll talk about that another time. Tonight, I wanted to use this opportunity of no particular Parsha to talk about to thank this wonderful community in ways that it has engaged in this mitzvah of Sfirat HaOmer, of counting the Omer. Sometimes this kind of gets overlooked in observance in Jewish communities, especially one as diverse as ours. Sefirat HaOmer, if you haven't been playing along, is this time where we start on the second night of Pesach. We start literally counting the days till the next holiday, which I know I do that right after Purim. From Purim, I'm literally counting the days until Pesach, but that's just me. So as a people, we count the days from Pesach to Shavuot. And it's also in this counting of days, which is a very meditative activity in its own right, a time of reflection, a time of study, a time of community and getting together and discussing these things. And I'm really, really proud of what this community has put together. First off, we have some amazing teachers who have agreed to lead small group discussions on a weekly basis about counting the Omer, and people had the opportunity to sign up for that. And if you didn't, my understanding it isn't quite too late. Call us in the office during the week, and we'll hook you up with a group of your choice. And there are also many people who've committed to a daily practice of counting the Omer. And we put together a special Facebook group for that, and there's a YouTube playlist for that. And I'm sharing emails with people. I know people love getting my emails. I know I love getting emails. But we're counting the Omer daily. And in at least one of our weekly discussion groups, and also in my daily group, we're taking this opportunity to look at 7 different attributes, 7 different midot is the Hebrew word for them. These are attributes of the divine, sometimes represented by the sphirot of the tree of life, that sort of 10-pointed symbol you see in texts on Jewish mysticism. It looks at 7 of those 10. And there's another teacher in our weekly series who's unpacking this way more than I am from the point of view of Jewish mysticism. But I am looking at these 7 midot. And the one that I've been looking at this week, the first one of this Omer cycle, is chesed. And just a couple of observations that I may or may not have shared this with some people who are in the group. So if you've heard me say this before, please forgive me. Please keep reading your email. I'm going to share it with people who haven't heard it yet. First off, I think it's amazing that when we begin this journey from Egypt to Sinai, from freedom to responsibility, chesed is a really beautiful place to start. And if you're not familiar with this Hebrew word, it means simply kindness, but there's a depth to it. It's not just kindness. It's not just being nice, right? It's acts of kindness, things you do for people that exhibit kindness, and not just any things that you do, but things that come from a place, come connected to an intention of love. That's why it's often translated as loving kindness, which I think is a really long word. Sometimes it's a little bit awkward. Loving kindness. Gandhi talks a lot about that, but he has a different siddur. So not just love, though. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can love. You love your friends, you love your family, you love your dog. I know I do. I also love my dog. But it's this kind of love that is unconditional. It's a love that comes from a place of zero expectation of reciprocity. The nice thing about this kind of love is that you can show chesed to strangers. You could be kind to people who don't know your address to send the thank you note to, right? They can only sometimes pay it forward, which I think is kind of nice. But just to unpack this word a little bit more, and then we'll go on to the rest of our service, I want to engage in what the rabbis of the Mishnah and the Talmud, one of their favorite games is what I'm going to play now. It's called amateur etymology. And it's looking at different words in our tradition and drawing connection and meaning from them. It's not amateur entomology. That's when you study bugs just for the fun of it. But amateur etymology is when you take a look at a word like chesed, and because of the beautiful structure of Hebrew and how words are connected at the root, quite literally the shorashim of the words, you say, what other word sounds like chesed? And one that's very popular in the Jewish lexicon is chassid. But I want to unpack that a little further, because when we think of a chassid, we're most likely describing somebody from a particular Jewish community that has, let's say, its cultural roots in 17th, 18th century Eastern Europe, when we think of Hasidic Jews, for example. And don't get me wrong, those folks are full of chesed, but that's not exactly what we mean when we say chesed. So what's the difference between chesed and hasid? And so we have to look a little bit deeper into our tradition to see where does this word hasid come from? In the Hasidic sense of Hasidic Jews, it has to do with students' devotion to their teacher, to their Rebbe. And you say, so-and-so is a Hasid of such and such. And that's where that name comes from. But Hasid, on a different level, comes from this word Hasid, which means pious one or piety. And you can draw some connections between Hasidic behavior and how we see that community of our family today, and piety. The trouble is, piety in English has I don't know how to say this, has a bit of a stink on it, right? When we say someone is pious, we don't always mean that in the 100% kindest possible terms. Piety or pious, we often connect with the word punctilious, right? Somebody who's very, or picayune. I'm looking all my P words. I'm using them tonight. None left for Scrabble later. But so punctilious, just really exacting observation of the mitzvot or rituals, or trying to do every right thing exactly the right way. And that's not a bad thing. But often piety or piousness is connected to sanctimony or sanctimonious, as I like to think of it, just like thou, only holier. So that's sometimes what we associate with piety, but that's not how the rabbis saw it. And my favorite lesson from this comes from Pirkei Avot. There's this chapter in Pirkei Avot, chapter 5. I like to call it the book of lists because it lists a lot of things. Like, here's 10 things that got created at creation. Here's 10 of these, 10 of those, 7 of these, 4 of these. And one of my favorites is this teacher, this teaching that also uses the word midot, or attributes, the same word we use when talking about Sfirat HaOmer. And it goes like this. Arba midot ba'adam. There are 4 character traits among people. HaOmer, sheli sheli, v'shalach shalach, zo midat benonit. One who says, what's yours is yours, and what's mine is mine. This is the average, everyday temperament. V'yeshomrim, but some say, zo midat Sodom. This is the attribute of those who dwelled in Sodom, which is, if I'm saying it in a way you haven't heard before, is the sister city of Amorah or Gomorrah, and we know how that ended. Meaning this kind of bounded idea of one's possessions. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. Sounds fair, sounds average. But if you live your life that way and only that way, it leads to a kind of moral degeneration. But that's one attribute. Sheli shelcha, v'shalach sheli, am haaretz. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. This am haaretz is complicated. Am haaretz is, it means a person of the land. Some might translate this. This is how peasants talk. And I would settle for that, except that I know am haaretz throughout the Talmud is used as an insult for an uncultured, unlearned person, a rube, if you will. So I'm going to give him some credit and go back to peasant. So this idea of what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine sounds wonderfully communitarian until you realize the expectation that comes with it. It's one thing to be generous. It's another thing to insist on the generosity of others to get you through your day. I'm going to switch these last two just because it ends better. Shalach shali, b'shali shali. This is the Russia. We met this person on our Passover Seder as well. This is a wicked person says, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is also mine, right? This kind of unbounded selfishness, this idea of, I got mine, and yours is mine too. Don't worry, it has a happy ending here. Sheli shelcha, v'shalach shalach, hu chasid. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is still yours. This is the attribute of piety. And this, for me, is how it connects to this idea of from Hasid to Chesed in Sfirat HaOmer. When we think of a pious person in our day and age, and especially in an Enlightenment period where we're skeptical of what we might regard as obsequious religious behavior, and especially if we've had that experience of sanctimony, of people being just like thou, only holier, we might not understand, and God willing, someday the pious will too, that if your commitment to piety, if your commitment to holiness requires a restriction on the behavior of others, are you really that secure in your path? Can you have piety without being generous with others who aren't there yet? I don't know. The sociologist Peter Berger says that plausibility structures require communal support, meaning it's hard to keep kosher when nobody else keeps kosher, right? It's hard to pray when nobody else is praying. So it is important to have community. It's important, but it's not strictly necessary if you can connect to the Holy One, whether anybody else is joining you or not. That's an aspiration. I prefer community. What I do know is that kindness, which asks for nothing in return, that is true kindness. That is chesed. And that's what we've been learning about this week in the Sfirat HaOmer. We'll go on to Gevurah a little bit later, but I just wanted to dwell in kindness for the Shabbat. Wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a Chag Sameach as we continue this service. Thank you for joining us. We're now going to go on to our Mariv service, beginning with our call to prayer, the Baruch Hu, on page 28. Please rise.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed.
ברוך הרי מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך ומעביר יום ומהביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרביב.
Amen. You may be seated, but please join us on page 29 for Avat Olam.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו ושוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בני תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה נהגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל אוהב עמו ישראל ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, והם שמוע תשמעו מצוות.
Continue at your own pace in the middle of page 30. Let's join together at the top of page 31. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, ve'amarta alehem, v'asu lahem tzitzit, al kanfei videhem לדורותם, ונענו, al tzitzit hakanaf batil techelet, v'haya lachem, letzitzit, uritem oto, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריכם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני
אדוני אלוהיכם,
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אמת.
Page 32, page 32.
Let's join together in the middle of the page with מי כמוך. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע היום לפני משה ומרים. זה לי, פנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד. ונאמר כיפד אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Amen. Page 33. Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace and awaken us again, our sovereign, to life. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Please join us on page 33 for Hashkivein.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ועמידנו מלכנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ועמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ושמור את צאתנו ואוהלינו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ועמידנו מלכנו לחיים. השכיבנו לשלום ועמידנו מלכנו לחיים. שלום 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 שלום. ברוך אתה אדוני הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Amen. Top of page 34.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. אוי 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 ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. As it is our custom for Chag, we continue in the middle of page 34 with a melody for Passover this time. וידבר משה את מועדי אדוני אל בני ישראל, אל בני ישראל. יתגדל ויתקדש שמר רבה,
Amen.
בעלמא דברך חירותה וימליך מלכותה, וחייכון יום אחד ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה קריב ויברו.
Amen.
יהי שמרה במבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמי.
Barach.
יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר, ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה.
Brichu.
לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירנו ירמה וימרו.
Amen. For our private Amidah this evening, we're going to go to page 41b. Page 41b, the Amidah for festivals and also Shabbat. So as you pray the words from the tradition, if that's what you choose to do, be sure to see the places where it talks about festivals and Shabbat. If you have your own prayers that you'd like to say at this time, you can add to that or pray those prayers. When you're done with your own prayer, you may be seated, and we'll get back together in just a moment. We rise for the Amidah.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי ואוהלי אמן. עושה שלום שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל אמן אמן. עושה שלום שלום במרומיו שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן ועל כל יושבי תבל
We conclude the Amidah with the Kaddish Shalem on page 48. Page 48.
יתקדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
Amen.
ואלמד ולחלתי וימליך מלכותה וחי יכון ומכון וחיית כל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו
Amen.
יש מרבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמי יתברך וישתבח ויתברר ונעשה ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי נקודשה לאלה מן כל מרחדה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמה ואמרו
Amen.
תתקבל אצלות ולמות לכל ישראל קודם אבוהון דמשמיא ואמרו
Amen.
יהא שלמה משמיא וחיים עלינו אל כל ישראל ואמרו
Amen.
עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו
Amen. We rise for Aleinu on page 51. Page 51.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורל עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שאונות השמיים. על כן נקבל לך אדוני אלוהינו יראת מלך ותפארת וזכר כי המלכות שלך היא, ולעולמי תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. And did somebody say Sefirata Omer? Did I say we're counting the Omer? Let's do that. It's going to be on page 55 in your Siddur. It is Omer night number 6. So I'm going to hand it over to Cantor Ruth, who has shared some wonderful, I'm going to say, tunes for this particular Kavanah and blessing on our YouTube channel. If YouTube is the kind of thing you enjoy, also on our Facebook group. So if you want to get the hang of these tunes, you can listen to that throughout this Omer period. I'm going to let Cantor Ruth decide which tune she wants to share this evening.
I think we're going to go with the Joseph Goldman tune, sang by many right now so far that I've heard, but each one of us does it a little bit differently. But if you want to follow the part of the words of this musical rendition, you can turn to page 55. לשם ייחוד קודשא בריחו שכינתי הנני מוכן ומזומן לקיים מצוות עשה לשם ייחוד קודשא בריחו שכינתי הנני מוכנה ומזומנת לקיים מצוות עשה של ספירת העומר של ספירת העומר של ספירת העומר של ספירת העומר שבע שבתות תמימות תהיינה שבע שבתות תמימות תהיינה ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על ספירת העומר על ספירת העומר על ספירת העומר על ספירת העומר. And since yesterday we counted 5 days of the Omer, then tonight we go with the next one. I think some people believe that we shouldn't say the name of the day until we actually call it formally. So let's call it formally together. If you're following on the Sim Shalom, we are on page 56. Hayom Shisha Yamim LaOmer. Today is the 6th day of the Omer.
At this point in our service, we remember those who are no longer with us. In the coming week, we're marking the yahrzeit of Aaron Sori, Aaron Suskin, Abraham Katzman, Ann Ufland, Barnett Freckman, Benno Frankel, Bobby Kraus, Carrie Young, Casper Sampson, Catherine Meng, Charles Essenston, Charles Oster, David Gold, David Cohen, David Leonard, David Weiss, Earl Arnold Agulnik, Esther Larner, Goldie LeBeau, Gordon Brightman, Herman Paul Kasdan, Isaac Burston, Isaac Nadel, Isidore Martin, Isidore Weichman, Israel Cohen, Jack Barnatan, Jacob Kirschner, Lena Goldberg, Leonard Mann, Lillian Meiselman, Louis Spiegel, Malka Schiff, Marilyn Beasley, Marvin Mazer, Mary Zeckley, Morris Nelson, Nathan Steinholtz, Oscar Kaplan, Rachel Cohen, Rebecca Perlmutter, Samuel Kay, Sarah Levin, Selma Molly Beskin, Saul Hess, Steve Mager, and Werner Danhauser. If you have another name that you'd like to lift up in honor at this time, please hold their name in your heart or say their name out loud wherever you are. And if you're in mourning or observing a yahrzeit at this time, I'll ask you to please rise and join me for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 52. Page 52. Let's pray together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
Balma divra kirute v'amlich malchute b'chayechom v'yomechom uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach leolam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata Damiran Be'alma Vimru. Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya. V'chaim Aleinu. V'al Yisrael. Vimru. Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimramav. Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu. V'al Yisrael. Vimru. Amen. If you're standing, you may be seated. We have just a few brief but wonderful announcements around here somewhere. Let's see. Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach, everybody. Tomorrow it is still Chag and it is still Shabbat, and we will be here at 9:30 a.m. Please join us for Shabbat and Passover services tomorrow. And we have some special treats. We have a little song at the sea for our Torah reading, as well as Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. If you ever wanted to hear a rabbi read some racy poetry, that was the time for it. So we'll be reading from the holy book of Song of Songs tomorrow, in addition to other parts of our service. And then Sunday, it is still Passover for a little while longer. And because it's the last day of the festival, we're not only having our Passover service, but we're having a Yizkor commemoration in that service as well. And I shared with people in this community earlier by email and other electronic means that we're doing something. We are doing our traditional Yizkor service. So if you're a person who looks forward to those services for the meaning that it has for you, we're going to be doing it in the traditional way. And then near the end of the service, right before we do Kaddish Yatom, we're going to have, I guess, what I'm calling a Musaf Yizkor in a way. It's an additional commemoration of a time of, I'm going to say, community mourning. We observe Yizkor for reasons of people that we're connected to. Somebody pointed out to me recently that we've had the first yahrzeit of somebody who passed right after the pandemic started. So a lot of people have been reflecting over the last couple of weeks on things that we miss, things that are hurting our hearts, that they're not part of our lives right now. God willing, some of these things we'll be experiencing again soon. But I wanted to take the moment as a community to acknowledge the feelings that we're feeling. And so Cantor Ruth and I will be spending a few moments at the end of services sharing some poetry, sharing some songs and some kavanot, and even sharing some wonderful messages that people in this congregation have shared with me to share with you. So that service is going to start at 9:30. We'll have Yizkor during the Torah service, and then near the end, I hope you'll stick around because I know I need it. So I hope you'll join us for that as well. Sunday in the afternoon at 4 p.m., we're having one of those Omer groups that I was talking about. Bhavani Mann is leading a group titled Gentle Healing Practices for Stressful Times. Couldn't be more timely with that. And then at 7 p.m., Rabbi Jason Mann is going to be leading his group, taking a journey through the prayer book. Fantastic. On Monday evening at 7:30, we have a sisterhood meeting. On Tuesday, a number of activities. We have a meditation group at 8:45 a.m. At 9 a.m., the J Street is having a webinar discussing the Israeli elections. So let us know what information you need to join that. At 6:30 p.m., the USY has its board meeting. And at 7 p.m., our ongoing Melton class on Leviticus is happening, 7 p.m. on Tuesday. Wednesday, a whole host of activities. My goodness, what a busy week. Wednesday, 8 a.m. meditation group, 10 a.m. Red Cross blood drive, very important. 5 p.m. Zevi Berman, who's one of our teachers, I believe, in the religious school, and an intern here, is leading a Nigunim, or Melodies, Omer discussion group. That's at 5 p.m. 7 p.m. There's an Omer group, Mystical Aspects of the Omer, with Rabbi Joshua Levine Grader, similar to what I was talking about earlier, but much more in depth. Please check that out. At 7:30, there is a men's club meeting, and at 8 p.m., we have our Pirkei Avot discussion group, another favorite book of mine. So on Thursday, we have our 10 a.m. Exploring Your Life Through Torah class with Rabbi Jason Mann. At 6 p.m., we have another one of these Omer groups. This is Ellen Dinnerman leading a group called A Journey of the Omer collage class. So if you're one of those people who relates to your Judaism, your spirituality through art and through things you make with your hands, or if you'd like to be one of those people or try that out, I highly encourage you to check that out at 6 p.m. on Thursday. And we have our social hall at 7:30. And I've been asked to share this message. As you can see, we've got lots of opportunities to count the Omer with your community. If you didn't get a chance to sign up yet, you can still join in now. This Sunday is when the first groups begin, so use the links in your e-blast to register. You'll automatically receive the Zoom links to join with a confirmation email. And you can still sign up to receive the daily Omer videos from me. That's Rabbi John Carrier as well. And you can join those at any time. So there is a traditional halachic practice that if you're not consistent with counting the Omer, some people frown on kind of picking up in the middle. That's not how this works here, these kind of discussion things and the learning things that we're doing. If you miss it, you haven't missed the boat. Feel free to join them at any time, and I or the other leaders would be very, very happy to have you. So thank you for joining us here at PJTC. We are going to wrap up this Chag and Shabbat evening service the way we began, and that is in song. And unless I missed anything, Cantor Ruth, I think we're going to ask people to rise and please sing along with us, and then stick around for Kiddush.
That's right. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. שלום עלינו ועל כל העולם. שלום, שלום. Salam Aleinu ve'akol ha'olam. Salam, shalom. Yo, 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 yo. Yevo shalom aleinu. Oh, yevo shalom aleinu. Oh, yevo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Oh, yevo shalom aleinu. Oh, yevo shalom aleinu. Oh, yevo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam aleinu ve'akol ha'olam. Salam, shalom. Salam aleinu ve'akol ha'olam. Salam, shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Good Shabbos, everybody. Please stick around for Kiddush. Grab a celebratory beverage of your choice, wine, juice, you do you, and meet us right back here.
Are we ready, Rabbi?
We are ready to rock and roll.
Okay, we'll do so by turning to page 50. If you're following on the words of the Kiddush, this Kiddush is a little bit different because it is for Shabbat and for Chag. So if you are in your Sidurim, it's page 50. And it'll be chanted with the traditional Pesach melody. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, bore pri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher בחר בנו מכל העם, ורומם בנו מכל לשון, וקידשנו במצוותיו. ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה, מועדים לשמחה, חגים וזמנים לששון. את יום השבת הזה, ואת יום חג מצות הזה, זמן חירותנו באהבה מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים. ושבת מועדי קודשך, באהבה וברצון, ושמחה וששון, הנך לתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני,
Baruch Shemo.
מקדש השבת וישראל, והזמנים.
Amen.
לחיים.
All right, if it's your custom to wash your hands before Motzi, now is a good time to do it. If you don't have washing gear at home, Don't worry, I'll be thinking of you while I do the mitzvah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim.
Amen. And guess what? I have something really cool today. I have a nice matzah cover. And even cooler, what's underneath, because we are honored by our colleague, Rabbi Amy Jurasi, who created for us these beautiful Pesach rolls. Super cool, huh? Yeah.
It's like three-dimensional matzah. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's kind of unheard of. So let's join together. First motzi and then matzah. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על אכילת מצה. חג שמח, שבת שלום. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.